Hi guys, Alicia with Working Dog Radio, Torchlight Canine, and Oil Capital Canine Fund. Thank you guys for tuning in to another awesome episode. Please check us out on YouTube. It's a new format for us. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. We're going to start doing some training videos and some other cool stuff on there. So we would really appreciate your follow on there. We'd like to take a second to thank our amazing sponsors. Without them, none of this would be possible. So guys, please check out Kinetic Dog Food, 513 615 6904. They are amazing. Horizon Structures, everything mild to wild in a dog kennel. They have it. They will drop it off at your door. Give them a call at 888 447 4337. If you guys haven't checked out Highland Canine Training yet, what are you waiting for? Jason and Aaron are amazing. They've got all kinds of courses, classes, and schools going on. Please check out Highland Canine Training at Tactical Police, the letter K, the number 9, training.com. Ray Allen Manufacturing, right there in Colorado. Everything is sewn there. They are amazing. They do so many collaborations with so many of the actual working canine guys in our industry, including me. Give them a shout. Check them out at rayallen.com and use the discount code WDR10RAY for 10% all things Ray Allen. Dogtra.com. If you have an e-collar, if you use an e-collar, if you have a working dog or a pet dog, check out Dogtra. They've got all of the products that you need. You can go to dogtra.com and use discount code WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200. Enjoy the episode. We'll be back. Thanks.
Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. I am Ted Summers from Tulsa, Oklahoma. As always, with me from Canton, Ohio is Eric Stanbro. Eric, what's going on?
Nothing. Had a pretty decent group turnout today.
Yeah, I saw you were busy.
Yeah, there's I only have one dog in this handler school, and he's going to certify on the 18th. So this group is coming down. They're about an hour away, and they came down to get, just a couple things dialed in, tuned up. I had 3 decoys here, so we might as well use it. A couple of the dogs like one dog for sure, that you could tell they've been working a lot out. So the dog was like anticipating it. So we just kind of let that dog fight a little bit, build that back up. And then he still got a verbal out at the end. So I put a post up my thing the other day. Again, I want to reiterate, we talk about verbal outs and things in here. The verbal out is not the pinnacle of dog training, but what happens is guys let it get in their head and it stresses them. And then it affects the way they train and affects the way they handle the leash and their tone and the way they handle the dog. But it is not. Everybody's got to do it. You got to do a verbal out. That's just to show control. It is not the law of the land. You are not required to verbal out on the street. I still maintain that it is not a good tactic on the street unless it's an emergency. There are a couple agencies that they are required to do it. Good on you, but you're not required to. So if somebody says you got to verbal out on the street, no, you do not. So don't let it bother you. Keep up with it. Stay ahead of it. Now there's guys that trained with me back in the day are listening, going, "Fuck, we never did." You're correct. You're correct. But now it's 2025, and I have evolved. And so I teach a nice, especially since I started the tone stuff, I teach a nice, easy, no conflict verbal out to take them off the guy's head. They're so worried about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. You can get your dog off.
Yeah. We train our guys 3 ways, and verbal is one of them. And we tell them that when the safest and the best times to do it is. And other than that, they do manuals. So, I do agree. it has to be done and you have to do it. But, I
do believe that certifying bodies should add a mechanical out into
some sort, whether it's a something, right?
Because you got to show some
an equipment thing too, right? Like being able to mechanically out a dog, whether it's for a breaker bar or a choke off or a dominant dog, whatever you're using is an equipment consideration. And a lot of times I think dudes are like, well, you talk about it all the time. Like dudes are like a choke chain and a 6-foot leash. And you're like, well, you can do it with a 6-foot leash and a choke chain, but that means the dog has to be wearing it. So it's kind of one of those deals that it's an equipment consideration. So,
and a lot of guys can't because they don't practice liftoffs enough. or they practice it in the decoy standing. The guys you bite are almost always on the ground. Doing a lift off on the ground is not easy. I mean, there's techniques to make it easier, but you got to practice it. And I posted my thing the other day. I saw a video, and if you're if of a handler, I don't know where he was at, and if you listen to the show and you're a fan of the show, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but he said in the video, I can't get him off. Somebody said, get him. I can't get him off. What the fuck are you saying?
Yeah.
Shut up.
You're like, I'm working on it,
Whoa,
bro.
don't say nothing.
Say I'm working on it.
Yeah, just I got it. Don't panic and say on your camera, I can't get him off.
Well, we talk about that at HRDs, right? We tell guys, you're gonna say what. That's why I hate when dudes like constantly are like, jazzing the dogs up. They're like, good boy, and I'm like, you say that shit while they're biting somebody, and it looks like a gang initiation. Looks like you're jumping somebody into the crypts, bro. Like, don't do that. Like, don't start fucking doing that. And
yeah, the praise on the bite is starting to get used against guys like in qualified immunity hearings and things like that.
And it's not like anybody should be fucking surprised. I mean, it's in Watkins. I mean, that's where it came from. When was that case decided? Like 1998. And that's how long that's how long it's been out. And they said in there, continued encouragement could be construed as a constitutional violation. Like in plain English, like even my dumb ass even knows. Like I can read that and be like, oh, I know what that means. Yeah. And dudes still are like, praise your dog. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah, we see it still a lot, but yeah. So you were down to the Pentagon, right? Down in DC?
Yeah, Alicia and I went to DC to work on a project with, we'll talk about it later at a later date, but we had a project going on. So we got to meet with some senators, staff, and some House of Representative staffs. I actually wore not a bite suit. I wore an actual suit. So if
I saw that.
You're friends with me on social media, you saw me standing in front of the Capitol building in an actual suit. And for those listening, no, it was not leather. It was shiny.
Did you have gym shoes on?
No, I didn't have. I had actual suit shoes on.
Okay, all right, suit shoes.
I had, like nice. I had like dress shoes on. I had nice shoes on, right? So no, the story on the suit is I got it at like the secondhand resale shop, and the only thing I can figure is somebody was getting a divorce. It's like a $6,000 suit, and I paid like $400 for it, and it still had tags on it. But this person
somebody sold their shit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like he got kicked out of the house, and she sold his shit. I was like, fine, whatever. This dude's my size. It's like a $6,000 Italian suit. So anyway, we're working on this project. We went to the Pentagon. Shout out to Robert Hogan at the Pentagon. He's one of the canine handlers there. Gave Alicia and I a fantastic tour of the Pentagon. Not like the normal tour. It was definitely a interesting experience being inside of that building. I mean, you see about it, you hear it, they talk about it all the time. It's in movies, it's on the news. It was just a really cool, event to be able to go do that. And again, I can't thank Robert enough. He's one of our listeners. Handles just a single purpose explosive German Shepherd. And those guys do a fantastic job over there. So Robert, thanks, man. Alicia and I had a blast. So what are we doing today?
I'm going to tell a story, and then we're going to take a break. And if you see, it's just me and Ted. And we come back from the break. It's a training episode. I'm going to talk about a specific topic, and then we're going to take a break, and then Ted's going to talk about his topic. These training episodes, people seem to like them. We're trying to help guys and ladies not reinvent the wheel and make things easier on them. I've talked a lot about how my training's evolved over the years, making it things as easy as possible, less conflict, getting rid of some of the old school ways that aren't necessary, that are still very prevalent. But so before we start, real quick on the Pentagon. So back in 2005, when I came through canine as a handler, the class was 14 weeks. At week 9, they had a history of going to Washington, D.C. for the 9th week, like trip, a break. And because the unit started in 1985, the very first 2 classes, class 1 and class 2, were taught by a guy named Dave Haskins. Dave Haskins was a DC Metro canine trainer, handler and trainer. Back then, I think DC had like 100 dogs, some crazy number. So the Canton guys, and they used to go down there and do ride-alongs with them and things like that. Plus, one of the guys who was my first trainer was stationed in the Marine Corps at 8th and I down there, and he was at Camp David, and I think the White House when he was in. So he's got a affinity for DC. So we went down there. We never met up with fucking DC. We just drank and partied the whole time. But we were there over a weekend, and we went to the Pentagon, and there's no one in the parking lot, right? You know, the parking lot is very empty on the weekend. And this was during a war, so it was 2005. And this police car comes out, Pentagon police car. What are you guys doing? And we told him who we were. Turns out the guy was a bloodhound trainer. He was a Pentagon cop. He was a bloodhound trainer. He had an article at the time on the front page of the website of USPCA, I think. And it was titled reading your dog's negatives or something like that, and tracking, learning where the guy isn't or something. And it was up there for a long time. And it's, I have it saved on my computer. I have to send you. It's a decent article about how to read the dog telling you where the guy isn't. That guy gave us a really nice tour of the place, and we were in Donald Rumsfeld's office at one point. We were, he was the SecDef then, and then I was fascinated to learn that every day at the Pentagon, or every week, they arrest at least one colonel or some major, some high-ranking guy, almost always for carrying classified materials without the right folders and the right document,
right,
clearance. Because it says what happens is a colonel's running an army base somewhere. This is an example I use. So he's running an army base, in the head dick in charge, over a lot of people, right? And he's a big deal. He gets transferred or shipped to the Pentagon as a kind of, stair step. Well, he went from being in charge of the base to getting coffee as a secretary for a general. And they carry stuff around. They have to arrest him all the time, which I thought was wild. But it was a neat little, I don't really remember much about it, but it was a neat little tour. I'm glad you guys to go in there. It's pretty cool when there's not the hustle and bustle, I'm sure, in that place.
Yeah, there was definitely much hustle and much bustle while I was there. It was there was a lot of people.
Well, it was a weekend.
No, we were there on like a Tuesday.
Oh yeah, shit, fuck yeah, of course.
So,
I was there Sunday. I think it was Saturday or Sunday. There was nobody there, so we were out back at one point, and this blacked out SUV pulls up. Dude gets out. You can see he's got a little jacket. You can see he's got a Uzi or some shit under there, maybe a little MP5, and a general gets out and goes running in, and the cop's like, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and end the tour here. I don't know what's happening. So, but yeah, so real quick story. Alicia asked me to tell this story. So back in Easter, I can't remember what year it was. I'm going to say 15, maybe 2015. My wife and I had a little mini Italian greyhound, Sasha. She died like the day before Easter. So we lived out kind of out in the woods. We had a fenced in area, but we had some woods around us, and we digging a hole to bury her in it. And so we dug the hole, and then my wife, we put him in there. And then I went inside the fence because I had a police dog candidate in my kennel, and I was just messing with him, right? Doing some bullshit, play with a ball and stuff. And I see him stop, and he's about 15 feet, 20 feet in front of me. And he leans out around me, and he's looking, definitely there's something behind me. And I turn and look just in time to see a monkey with a belt on and a leash running through the woods. A monkey.
Like a big one or like a little
No,
one?
capuchin.
Okay.
Goes running, and I went, holy fuck. And I knew right away who it was. There's a lady, family that lived kind of over by us that had a monkey. And the dog's looking. Now, I didn't have a high fence, and this Malinois was a bad motherfucker. He could jump that fence and kill that monkey. So I'm like, oh, no, come here. I grabbed the dog, threw him in the kennel. I go out. Some dude comes running through the woods with his phone. Did a monkey just run through here? A monkey? And I can see through the woods, there's this road that's a hill, and I can see his car parked on the hill. He goes, a monkey just ran out in front of me. And I'm like, yeah, he ran through here, and he ran through the woods towards my neighbor's house. Dude, I tried, jumped the fence, went and looked, couldn't find this fucking thing. Pretty soon, within 15, 20 minutes, I hear, here, monkey, 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 monkey. Here, monkey, monkey, monkey. The lady who owned the monkey had climbed on her roof and just sat there. Here, monkey, 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 monkey. For hours. Hours and hours. This is like 2:00 in the afternoon. It was dark before she stopped. So then her husband, who I've known forever, they're walking around with flashlights looking for him. I'm like, I'm going to leave my garage door open, see if it's Easter, so it's going to be cold in the evening. See if he tries to come in. There's just a bunch of places around there he could hide. That thing fucking vanished. And so they're walking around, here, monkey, monkey, monkey. And then the next day, all of a sudden, there's all these freaking people walking around on the street and in my cul-de-sac and in the woods with monkeys. So apparently she belonged to a monkey club.
Of course.
Yes. Why wouldn't you? And they brought the other monkeys in so that maybe them making monkey noises or smells like a monkey would bring this thing out. That didn't happen. So they're all over there with this monkey. And then later that day, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 o'clock, I see him. I'm in the backyard again, down in the fence. I'm like, fuck, there's the monkey. Right? I yell. Well, they're up on the street in front of my house. They had been chasing him. The weird thing, dude, is he's not wearing the belt or the leash at this point. So he must have took it off, which is freaky. He goes running. I'm chasing him up the steps, up through the, because my house at the time sat here, and then it was a hill down into the yard. So we're chasing and she comes pulling up on her car, yells, everybody stop. That monkey goes running across the street down into the woods, gone again. She goes running down there, and it took her 2 minutes. Came back with the monkey inside her hoodie. As soon as he saw her, he just turned around and came running back to him. That thing, she was offering a $10,000 reward for that fucking monkey. And I was like this close to getting it. But yeah, here, monkey. They ended up having to move because they're not allowed to have a fucking monkey. And it's an HOA. Can't have a monkey in there. So anyways, Alicia likes that story just because of the here, monkey, monkey, monkey. For 6 hours, nonstop, for 6 hours, just sitting on the peak of her roof, yelling that shit. I'm like, when do we give up that? Well, like, when's that? When are we realizing that's not going to work?
When Harambe comes home.
Yeah. I have a feeling, because he still was in my little area there. I have a feeling he slept in my garage or maybe in the neighbor's kid playset or something right there. But yeah, and I used to own a monkey, dude. They just suck. They're not fun. I know guys that have them. They're just not fun. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we're going to get into the training stuff, and hope we can teach you guys something and help you out. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's me again, back with some more awesome sponsors. I want to talk a little bit about Ray Allen Canine Manufacturing. Who else in our industry allows us to come to them with ideas as handlers, as dog professionals, and say, you know what, I think I would like to make this, or wouldn't this be a good idea? And they will actually sit down with you and talk to you about your designs. I've got a collab with them on a muzzle, on a leash and a collar. They're amazing to work with. Their products are top notch. They're made in America, in Colorado, and we love Matt. So give them a holler. Check them out on socials at Ray Allen, the letter K, the number 9, or visit them online at rayallen.com and use our discount code WDR10 RAY for 10% off. Guys, have you visited Dogtra lately? If you go to Dogtra, they have their new online portal, and it's really cool, very user-friendly. You don't have to call them and order them anymore. You can go to mydogtra.com caninaidog.com, and they have everything there. You can set up an online profile. They keep your orders. They know what you've used. We use everything, their ball droppers and poppers. We use their e-collars, their 1900S hands-free for our officers, their Q and their 280 for our pet clients. We use all of their products all the time. Eric travels around and does seminars specific to Dogtra, so you can have him come in and teach a class on how to use it. Check them out, dogtra.com, and follow them on their socials. We love kinetic dog food. Ted has been using the large format. It makes excellent tracking treats. He uses it for teaching article indication. It's these huge nuggets of food that you can lay down, grab, put in your trainer's pouch. The quality is excellent. We love Debbie and Dave. We have a great relationship with them. They want to know you. They will talk to you about nutrition, about what your dog's needs are. They'll help get you set up. Their food is available everywhere. We've gotten it off of Chewy. You can buy it at stores. Like, please check them out. kineticdogfood.com. Your dog needs these nutrients, and they are really specific to our industry's needs. They have a full line of supplements now. Please check them out. We'll have some soon that we can give away. Go check them out. Follow them on their socials at Kinetic Dog Food. They'll really appreciate that.
All right, everybody, we're back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. Eric Stanbro and Ted Summers. Just us, no guest today. We're going to do another training episode. We've been doing these, I don't know, every fifth or sixth episode lately.
Yeah.
Something like that. We got a couple really good episodes lined up for you guys. Some legal stuff, really good stuff. And we're going to talk to, hopefully, I don't want to say who it is, but somebody that's been doing this for, I don't know, 100 years probably.
Yeah,
pretty close
at a very big place.
Yeah. So, and so we're looking forward to that. They just got to get some things approved. And, so anyways, the topic I'm going to talk, we've done this. We've talked about outs. I think I've talked about teaching tone avoidance. I forget what other things I've talked about. You've talked about tracking, building searches, I believe.
Yeah.
The building search episode was pretty good about how you build a brand new dog with, the warning and noise and things like that. And it's really good. If you haven't heard that one, go back and check it out. So I didn't know what I was going to talk about today. And I had the group here, good dudes. And we were talking about obedience. There's a bunch of different types of obedience, but we're going to talk specifically about the heel today. We were fixing, while they were here, we were fixing the downstay. I've talked about, I don't know if I talked about it on here, but I've talked about it a lot in a lot of my social media about the easy way to get your 2 or 3 minute downstay, whatever it is you have to do, which a lot of guys struggle with. But they were telling me that the vendor that they use doesn't really do any obedience till a couple weeks out. And then he tries to get it all dialed in with heavy stim on the e-collar, especially on the heel. And I can't tell you enough how problematic that can be. I don't think I ever even did that. When I started as a handler and then as a trainer, I was all yank and crank, and that does not work. That does not work. And then I started doing focus heel. Then I started doing other stuff, but I'm going to go over it how I do it now and problems I see with some of the other styles and how you can get your dog at least certify the certification off leash heel that you got to do in a relatively short period of time. I talked about it maybe in the book I wrote, I talked about it at my seminars about how 14-week class, week 12, we had to block off the gate and put a car in front of the gate because we were going to go off leash. 12 weeks. We didn't know if the dog would make 2 right turns and 2 left turns without running off. We always had to have a ball in our pocket so we could get the dog back if he ran off. We had dog fights. It was a whole ordeal because it was taught through yank and crank. If you are still just using a choke chain or a first saver on your dog, you are light years behind everywhere else or where you should be. So when I started making my changes, I started doing focus heel. Focus being like a sport type heel with the toy up on your shoulder or maybe up under your armpit. It worked. I mean, it was okay. It worked enough to get through certification. Because on cert day you could just take your fist and put it up on your shoulder and the dog would lock in. That's not really applicable or real for police. It shouldn't be. You should not be teaching a focused heel like that in police work. You need to teach a heel. So the other problem is the ball. You have the toy. Many of you can't get the toy back from your dog, or it's a huge fight, or he spits it out and then he lays on it with his feet. And then you go real slow to pick it up and he bites you or bites the toy, or you got to grab it and spin in circles real fast and put it in your hoodie pocket before he sees it. And then you got to, show him an empty hand that it went away, rather than just teach him an out. That's a whole nother episode that you can go back and listen to. So what I started doing was I started taking away the toy and just doing food. Now, I don't food lure. A lot of people do. I don't food lure in the heel. I will food lure an auto sit, but I don't food lure the heel. I create a box next to me. Inside the box is rainbows and butterflies and unicorn semen just raining on the dog. 1 inch outside the box is a correction. There's pressure. If you're too far forward, pressure. If you're lagging, pressure. If you drift left or right, whichever side you're on, pressure. Inside the box, no pressure. And I used to teach, and you probably came up with this way too, or came up this way, is heel, turn. Every turn, heel, foot. So I'm just going to use English.
Yeah.
Heel, turn, heel, 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 heel. And it was a way to get the dog to pay attention to what you're doing. Heel, then turn, heel, then turn, heel, heel. I got sick of it. Got sick of teaching it, right? So I started doing this with pets and I do it with police dogs. A couple of reasons why I don't use a toy anymore is, one, it does create them wrapping around in front of you with their head in front of you. And then if you're not good at fixing that, their shoulders are in front of you and then their rib cage, and then you're tripping over them. And then they're flipping and spinning in front of you to get that toy. Because you always, so we're going to use during this conversation where the dog's always on your left, right? That's where we're going to be, on the left. But guys reward that ball out of the right hand. So then the dogs start looking and looking and looking. Next thing you know, the ball's hidden, but you have an e-collar remote in your hand. And the dog's staring at the e-collar remote and sometimes even biting it.
That has a fucking string on it, so it looks like a ball.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes they're even biting it.
Around your neck.
Right. So the way I do it now, and it makes it so much easier, is, first of all, I use prong collars. And again, I'm going to remind you, prong collars are not the ultimate correction. They are not to be used baseball bat grip on the thing and you put a pinch on him and rip his skull off. That's not what they are for. They're just to teach pressure, right?
If I have a very interesting comment about this. This relative to one of the dogs that I have in class right now. So I just got a dog that was imported, and the videos I got of him, they had him doing like a bark and hold on a person with a sleeve in a muzzle. And I was like, the fuck is going on here? I don't know if they were scared of him or what. Anyway, so I get this dog in and I know he knows some commands, right? So we've been getting a lot of dogs that, for better or for worse, the Northern Europeans, some of the countries have banned e-collar use and have banned pinch collars. This dog had never had a pinch or an e-collar on that I could tell. He 1000% understood pressure. He did not know how to work for food at all. Like trying to feed him by hand. Like I had to feed his ass like you see like those snake handlers feed snakes with sticks and shit at first.
Yeah, with a falconer's glove on.
Yeah, because he'd fucking bite the shit out of me. So, and not like trying to bite me, just didn't know, like he didn't know how to do it. But I mean, this dog was wild. I put a pinch on him and I popped him, I don't know, 1 or 2 times and layered on low level E-stem over it. 1000% that dog knew how to turn on pressure and how to turn off pressure. And I had him, if you're listening to this, you go back and look at some of my social media stuff, like on Instagram. I had that dog off leash healing in 40 minutes, I think. And the dog intimately knew how to now it took me longer to get him to work for food because he's like, I don't understand what you want me to do here. Yeah. Now that he knows how to work for food, that dog is like, he's a monster. But Yeah, they understand pressure, right? Like they understand, and pressure can come in many, many, many forms. And I don't know what form. I suspect it was a garden hose filled with sand, but like I don't know what pressure this
Steel
dog had
toe
been.
boot.
Yeah, I don't know, but he had seen some. He had seen some horsepower. I can say that. But now, tiny. I can. He's about a 85-pound German Shepherd, and just wants to destroy everything. And I mean, with just the lightest touch on a collar or the lightest touch of an e-collar, you got just tons of control on this dog. Like super easy.
Yeah, so like the guys today were saying, they were taught high stem to keep the dog in place. If you ever come to my seminars, or if you ever come to hear me talk at a conference or read my book or whatever, or ever get a chance to come here to the Funhouse, you will be surprised how low of stem I actually use.
Yep, me too.
I don't feel bad if I have to go high, but my goal is to be low, low, low. And the way I do things now, I'm almost never high. I used to be back when I didn't know shit. High on a dog trick collar, high on the Sport Pro.
We
or
even
whatever.
have an episode we had Trent on. It was called 6 High.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 6 high on the dog on the 550. So I'm never up there like that. So what I do is I have the leash and the prong collar on the dog, and I just put it on, and we're walking around, and I let him get out, and he gets a little bit of body weight pressure on the collar, and my goal, just to keep me mentally and physically in the right space, is I hold the leash with 2 fingers. That's it, 2 fingers, and I let him get out to the end, and a little bit of pressure, and I do an about turn and go the other way. And he'll turn the pressure off. And when he does, I can mark it. Yes, I don't give him nothing. The removal of the pressure is a reward. It's a reward enough. So he'll slingshot past me the other way, and I just turn and go back, turn and go back. And after a few of those, I'll eat up a little bit of leash, And then when I make a turn and he's kind of hugging my leg or paying attention, then I know he's understanding it. And guys, this doesn't take hours. I've gotten dogs relatively loose leash heel next to me in less than a minute using it, and I'm never ripping their heads off.
Turn into Velcro dog.
Yeah, and because then they have to pay attention to you because they don't want to feel the pressure. They're putting themselves in control of it. So then I just start little adjustments in the box, right? I keep their head next to me, especially shepherds. I don't want their head past my leg, because they get past and then their shoulder past, and then they start looking around for other things to pay attention to than you. Always remember, you are the source of life. You are the one that takes them to do the fun things. You give them water, food, and shelter, not anything else. So I do a few of those. I start making those little adjustments, little corrections, and then I put them up. 5 minutes. Then the next session I get them out, and we're going to do it again. And then now that they understand pressure, I can start teaching them a sit with pressure first. I can start teaching them, but we're going to stick to the heel. Then I start adding e-collar stem on a low working level at the same time that I'm correcting or tapping on the prong collar. So if I am popping the collar, I am tapping stem. That combination of e-collar stem and pressure from the prong collar is fuel to this system. It's crazy how that really gets them going. Then I either me or whoever's doing it, I go, okay, now I want you to make these turns, and I don't want you to move your hand with the leash in it. And the leash is not cross body. Guys, that's old school. If the dog's on the left, you put the leash in your right and you correct them across your body. You're doing yourself a disservice. I'm telling you, you're just teaching that dog to come in front of you. So I keep it all in my left hand, and then I'm popping and tapping at the same time. Then I'm not moving my hand, and I'm using e-collar pressure. If they drift left, I tap until they're in where they're supposed to be. If they forge, I find holding continuous till they self-correct and letting the stem go when they're in the right spot. Just think, you have an imaginary box with a plate glass window in the front of it. He can't go past the plate glass window, and he can't drift outside the box. Their heads feel good when they're doing it, and I don't talk at all. I give the heel command when I step off. That is it. I'm not going heel, 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 heel. I might say good, or I mark a yes if when I'm teaching the pressure. But you do that, you'll be able to take that leash within a day and drape it over one finger. If you can see me on the video, drape it over one finger, and the dog will stay there in a loose leash heel. You can make left turns, left about turns. Left about turns are really strong. I used to teach, and I used to do it, and I used to teach it. When you make that left turn, you pivot on that left foot, and then your right knee comes up. And if the dog's in the way, he gets a knee. Until I wore a dog on my fucking knee. Kneecap bites are horrible.
Yeah.
So now I'll use the prong call in the beginning, and I pop them backwards, and then I make the left turn. Right? I'm not pulling. This is where guys get this wrong. Is you see them, they're not popping the leash. They're pulling on it. And what happens when you do that? Opposition reflex. The dog pulls against it. So I'm popping. Then I make the turn. Then if I have to make an about turn left where it's inward, like a 180, I'm popping them all the way through that turn. Then I'm adding the e-collar into it. Tap, 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 turn. Hey, pay attention. I'm about to turn. Tap, 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 turn. And then they start watching. And when they see that left shoulder dip, they'll pivot with you. And then you'll get a nice little pivot turn, and the dog stays out of your way. No need to trip over him, no fighting, no kneeing him out of the way. So then once you start using the e-collar only, it makes you better at the e-collar. Your timing gets better. He drifts out, boom, tap on the collar. And if you're on a 550, you're probably on a 2 low for that, maybe a 1 high. You're not on 4. If you're in a dog tray, you should not be using in the 30s and 40s on your heel. You should be in the teens at the most. If you're 30, 40, that means you either need contact points to get through the long hair, or it's not tight enough. If you can move that thing, it's not tight enough. So that little way of just teaching that heel. So I did this in Indiana. And when I do it at my seminars, it's the second day we do this. I say, okay, as you're walking, don't make a big deal about it. Reach down, unhook your dog, and then I'm going to have you make some turns right away. Boom, 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 boom. So I had this one young guy. He's doing it off leash. Perfect. Boom, boom, boom. Looking great. I go, yeah, I could tell you work on that. That's really nice. And he goes, no, I've never been off leash with this dog. Never. Their cert didn't require it. He's like, he'll run away. I can't believe that. And it's because I created that box without me being involved vocally, that he understands the pressure is when I get out of it. So it's just an easy little training tip for you it'll clear up and clean up some problems, because not to say that I didn't do this either, but once we get through certification or recert, guys barely ever walk their dog at a heel, right? Almost never. They, they're out off to the side, they're dragging in and out of stuff, but there's going to come a time where you may have to walk through at a heel through people to get to something, or out of a building through a bunch of people. A nice little heel is really helpful. And if you keep up with this, certification is not something you need to prep for weeks. You're not worried about it. You already have it. That's why I stay on top of the verbal out. That's why I stay on top of some of the recall, is so that cert day is just another training day. Guys have to spend a month or weeks getting ready for their certification. Just stay ahead of some of these things. So that's it. That's training end. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Ted's got some pretty cool stuff about detection that we're going to go over. Stick around. Don't fast forward through the commercials. If you do, check the show notes for the discount codes. Burn up them codes, folks. We love to see it. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Please check out our friends Jason and Aaron Perguson at Highland Police Canine. If you guys are interested in going to school, if you've come out of the military, you can use your GI Bill to go through their school. They have a pet training school. They have a police training school. They have online courses that you guys can take, such as their canine supervisor course. You guys can really take that as far as you want with them. They are a veritable fountain of knowledge when it comes to canine. They're located in North Carolina. They're always accessible, always available, and we've had such a long relationship with them. I cannot say a good enough good about them. So please check them out. If you go to Tactical Police Canine Training, go to their online programs, check them out. Use the discount code NARC for 20% off any of their online courses. Guys, that will help you. It'll help you make headway in this industry. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when we're talking about dog kennels and their construction, like you don't know where to start. What do I do? What do I add? I need to weatherproof this, waterproof this, pee-proof this. If you guys have checked out Horizon Structures lately, it's unbelievable. They literally have everything that you could possibly need. They can build your kennel with as many holes as you want in it, and they can drive it out to you, set it on your pad, hook it up, and you can move dogs in it immediately, from mild to wild, from one kennel all the way up, from the tiniest of pet runs to the hardest of working dogs. If you can dream it, they can build it. Go ahead and check them out at horizonstructures.com. Go specifically to their working dog area. It's commercial-dog-kennels. Give them a call, 888-447-4337. And of course, check them out on their socials at Horizon Structures, and they will hook you guys up. We also want to send a huge shout out. He recently passed away. Rest in peace, Brother Deeg. Thank you for our music. Thank you for the permission to use it. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you're doing well on the other side. Thank you guys for listening.
All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. Doing a training episode this time. Ted Summers back, Tulsa. Eric from Canton, Ohio still. Eric was just talking about how to maintain a heel with some of the e-collar work. One of the things that I wanted to mention that I was thinking about while you were talking, Eric, early on as you were describing it, you were talking about not using high levels of stem and and like the desire, right? Because Americans, like, if a little is good, is lots better, right? I mean, that's our MO with everything. So the one thing that I think everyone who listens to this has heard Eric and I both talk about how we use the e-collar as a gas pedal and a brake pedal. If you listen to Rigney, they do it. Justin talks about it too a lot. A lot of the e-collar, like modern e-collar guys, talk about it. And a really good example that I give a lot at any e-collar seminars during handler schools is the difference between positive punishment and negative reinforcement. And handlers, I think, when you're not trained in how to use an e-collar, use high levels of stem for positive punishment. We tell the dog to out. He doesn't out. You blast him at 127 on a dog trail, and it works a couple of times. He's like, oh, shit, what is that, right? Especially if the dog has no foundation on e-collar work, right? And especially no pressure work. The issue then becomes if your timing sucks, and yours does, if you're listening to this, probably your timing probably sucks, or you're inconsistent with it, what you end up doing is strengthening the biting behavior through negative reinforcement. So you intend to set out to use a high pressure and positive positive punishment to get the dog out, and you end up negatively reinforcing, because some of these dogs are really, really strong, that behavior, and you're like, oh, now he won't out, whatever else. And I guess Eric will probably, I have a feeling as soon as I stop talking, to say, when I go to e-collar seminars about how to fix bad e-collar work, that's what I fix most of the time. So just kind of think of that in the back of your mind. I don't use high levels of stem because I need more ceiling, right? Like, if I have to use some horsepower, I need that to be there. And if I'm working in the 25, 30, and I need to go to 100, I can make a point really fast and then come back. So usually I set our boost anywhere from 15 to 25 above my working level, and we're good to go, like on the Dr. 1900Ss and stuff. So just kind of something to think about. I was thinking about where you were talking about it in the last segment.
Yeah, real quick, I tell people you need to feel the e-collar. If you haven't done it, shame on you. Put it in your hand, get your even pressure, find your working level, then just go up a few numbers higher. Not high, higher. And go up to the point where if you were blowing it off, you'd be, okay, fuck, that's plenty. And you look and it's like 6, 7 numbers up. Higher is usually enough. High would be saving the dog's life from the traffic or some other reason that you had to go up and smack that dog. When I'm doing with a bunch of different collars, so on the dog trail, yeah, I used to hold and roll, and then all that did was teach the dog to hold on.
Yeah, you end up negatively reinforcing the behavior.
Yeah, right. So
right?
I don't do that anymore. And again, through my seminars, you'd see my goal is to come down, and to not use it at all. So, anyways, go ahead.
So one thing that we taught these training episodes typically, and like Eric's last assessment was about the actual nuts and bolts, right? Of how we like step 1, step 2, step 3, how we do what we do, whether Eric's doing it or I'm doing it or whoever, or our guest or whatever is what we're talking about. And, Eric does handler schools. I do handler schools. We've had other vendors on here that do their own handler schools. We've had other, departments on here that do their own. During those handler schools, we're taught, and you as a handler taught a lot of things about how to handle the dog, about how to handle like in-home stuff, about how to handle working things, about how to handle the dog in public, about all these other things. You should be taught how to handle paperwork. You should be taught how to write reports. Like teaching, like that's not my thing, even though I give my canine handlers like report writing and stuff. One thing that I think is not talked about a lot is, okay, so you spent a month, 2 months, however long in your handler school, and you go to work, and then you go through your first couple of sessions of trainings, right? So you're supposed to be training 16 hours a month, all these other things, and not necessarily how and what, well, definitely how and what you're documenting, but what you're doing in your training and what it consists of. So I'm going to focus on the detection portion here. And because I get a lot of questions about it, and this was kind of spurred, I saw a conversation the other day that was going on about a dog that was dealing with some anomalous odor that was a target odor in another venue and some other things. And so, all too often, I don't think handlers are taught the detection side in terms of the technical applications of some of this stuff, and then the paperwork and case law implications on the other side. So we've got to do both of these. The one thing that I see a lot and that is not done a lot, and for those listening to this, if you want to email me or the show or whoever, some of these predicate questions that I'm going to talk about, I have an entire thing that I give all my handlers, just like 10 pages, I think. And it's from a bunch of trial attorneys that do expert witness qualification. And this is like size 10 font of like list after list after list of questions you should be able to answer. And some of what I'm about to talk about is in here, and you should be able to either write an answer for these or have a very good oral answer to a lot of these. And some of these have very little to do with the technical, like handling and training of a dog, and the other side of it does. So with that, I want to talk about kind of like detection work in terms of reward history, blinds, non-blinds, and then how we deal with things outside of what we know are target odor. So for our detection handlers, regardless of what you're training on, whether it's explosives or narcotics or whatever, we have an entire list of known things that we certify on, right? So for narcotics, it's usually the big four. Occasionally you'll still have people certify on MDMA, although it's not very common anymore. But we have, coke, heroin, meth, marijuana, blah, blah, blah. So within that realm, we have other tangential odors that are typically always present. And the one thing that we've talked about a lot recently, and I saw something recently that I just couldn't wrap my head around why it became such a talking point. And then several weeks later, this other discussion popped up, and I was like, okay, we probably should at least find somebody to talk about this or talk about it a little bit, because this seems to come around every couple of years. But there's a very good, talented trainer from Europe that teaches dogs to find tiny little pieces of Kong. And it became like this whole fucking thing where everyone wanted to talk about the fucking Kong, right? And the dog's going to find the Kong. The dog's not going to find the Kong. And the entire time, because I was so busy at the time with getting green dogs ready, and then I had an HRD going on and some other stuff, and I was in and out, and I didn't have much time to doom scroll. But I couldn't wrap my head around why this was such a problem And I'm seeing people that I consider peers talking about this on like a super heady level. And I'm like, did you guys fucking forget how to proof dogs and how to document it? Because I was at a loss. So I inboxed one of our previous guests, Bill Gaskins, who was kind of talking about it. Shout out to Bill. But if go back and listen to this episode, it's from about a year ago, I think, right? It was from Hold the Line. We had him on from Hold the Line conference, right? Yeah, that was right. And he's like, no, you didn't miss anything. And it's exactly kind of like what's going on here. But I couldn't for the life of me I couldn't figure out why this had become an issue with detection handlers. Like, these are guys that their jobs day in and day out are handling a dog that finds dangerous substances. And we're talking about the difference between finding a fucking Kong and not, and how dangerous it is and how it's not dangerous and why we do it and why we don't do it. And the entire time I'm thinking in the back of my mind, it's not about the Kong. Like, it's not. Like, it could have been any odor. And the dog, and I think the handler the trainer in Europe that does this, Tobias, super talented, and we actually should probably have him on the show at some point. And, he gets a very good, like, final response and everything else, but it's not about the fucking Kong. It's just not. It's about target odor versus anomalous odor, and kind of those things. So it kind of got me thinking, and I didn't really kind of do anything with that. I kind of wrote a bunch of notes down on stuff that I wanted to add to some of my handler schools, and I made a couple of slides for my presentation for my guys and some other things. And I talked to some of my current handlers from in-service training and said, hey, you understand this is what's going on? And they're like, yeah, we know. I'm like, okay, fine. So it kind of reared its head again recently. And in these predicate questions that we give all of our handlers, you're asked specifically, what is your dog? What are you guys certified to find? And then there has been discussion recently about having a negative certification. What I mean by that is certifying that the dog will walk, for example, marijuana in a certification environment. And I kind of feel like that is a answer to a question that's not being asked. Because it's such a comfortable thing for courts, for attorneys, for admins, is right. Like, oh, the dog is certified that he's not certified to find marijuana. He'll walk it in a certification environment. We already have the answer in Florida versus Harris. Like, that's the answer. It's in your documentation. So for my guys that run dogs that are 3 odor dogs, or I say 3 odor dogs that are, the other 3 food groups minus weed, you should be documenting that the dog does, in fact, not show interest on marijuana. And if possible, do this in blind and blind runs. So because it invites a question, I think, that doesn't really need to be asked, because, of course, the downward slope of that is, well, why aren't we certifying them on tobacco? Why aren't we decertifying them on tobacco? Why aren't we decertifying them on Zine? Why aren't we decertifying them on Crown Royal bags? Why aren't we, like, there's all these other things, and then it starts to open this door that I don't necessarily think needs to be opened. While I understand the implications of what's going on, I think it's kind of an answer to a question that nobody's asking, at least in that form. So with that respect, like, what are we documenting and what are we not documenting? A lot of times dudes will document the date, they'll document the amount of the find, right? Whether it's, a couple grams of this or an ounce of this or whatever it is that you're finding, and the documented location. And that's generally about it, right? Like, that's the bare bones. I've seen some handlers that document all kinds of other crazy shit. So the other, the one thing that I want to add to this is the find, was the training blind or was it not blind, right? Like, what was the other? What I mean by that is, did you know? Right? Did you know where the find was, or did you not know where it's at? So in that same vein, there is a very, very large national organization that, to this day, I heard from a handler this afternoon that recertified with this organization, and they were told not to actually reward dogs on traffic stops because you're not sure if the dog is right. And it's 2025. We just landed a private spacecraft on the fucking moon. And there's still people saying this. Mind you, these are the same guys that will then turn around to tell you, trust your dog. And I'm like, bro, pick a struggle. Either don't trust him or do. And the reason that you don't reward on the street or in an actual fine or whatever on a blind, just in a blind search in general, is not because you don't trust him. Right? So when we do these handler schools, we're trying to teach handlers what changes of behavior look like that precede, that happen in an alert, right? That's what an alert is, versus a trained final response. Everybody knows what that is for the final for these dogs. And you can't have one without the other and vice versa. So ultimately what it comes down to is, are you able, and in these predicate questions that I give my handlers, like, are you able to articulate the dog's changes of behavior during their alert that precede a trained final response? What are those? And the only reason they do those is in the presence of odor. So telling somebody, you're like, why don't I reward on every single, like, why don't I reward on a stop? Because I'm not sure if he's right. If I hear any of my handlers say that, I'll take the dog from you myself. Like, I will make sure that you will be fucking fired from being a handler. God damn it, that pisses me off. Stop fucking saying it, because it's not the case. Can you imagine going through an interrogatory process and writing that down and then having some shitbag plaintiff attorney sit across from you while you're under oath and look at him and say, what do you mean you're not sure if he's right? When everything we've done, all the case law from the last 30 years says different. It's fucking infuriating. Stop fucking saying it. But what we do need to do is document that we are doing single blind testing at a minimum of 4 times a year. I tell my guys to do single blind testing 4 times a year, right? Out and make it fully legit. You're basically running a mock certification is what it amounts to. And then the other times when they are known, the reason that we run known versus unknown is that so we can continue to refine our skills of identifying the dog's changes of behavior in the presence of target odor. And I mentioned this to somebody the other day. You're also documenting that the dog is not alerting to material that is typically found all the time. The argument typically is, most of the time when we find, some of the other illicit food groups, meth, coke, heroin, whatever, that these people are also medical marijuana users or regular marijuana. They're just marijuana users in general, right? So how are we splitting these, right? And I don't ever hear the same discussion around tobacco. You'll be hard pressed to find somebody that smokes regular, plant marijuana that doesn't also smoke tobacco in some form or the other. And typically, are you running negatives on tobacco? Is the dogs being exposed to it in an operational environment and training and in blind testing and in blind training? And is he walking that odor, and are you documenting it? That's all you need. We don't need a fucking negative certification for that. The second portion of this is there are some cases that go along with it. On the single blind and double blind testing thing, U.S. versus Jordan's out of the 10th Circuit, and it was from 2021. I'm going to screw that up. It's 20 late. I don't know. 20 between, I think it's 2021. It's U.S. versus Jordan's Utah. The plaintiff actually won on an argument that they questioned Utah Post, which was an interesting tact because it's Utah Post and is one of the most well-respected certifications in the country. And they said that the certification was not valid because they didn't have a double-blind standard. And how the government let that slide, I'm not 100% certain, but nonetheless, it still happened. So it did bring in the specter of, are you doing it and are you certifying, and are you documenting it? The other side of this is always rewarding or not always rewarding and everything else, the variable reward schedules. So during imprinting, like early days, like green dogs, like brand new dogs, brand new handlers, right? During the early days, we reward every single time. I mentioned to one of my former handlers that we do it so that it's almost a religious experience for the dog, right? They are under the impression that when they find odor and they give us their final, they are going to be paid 100% of the time until they're not. So from a training perspective, we want variable reward schedules because I think I've said this before. I say this all the time everywhere else. I don't know if I've ever said it on the show, but I'm not the first person to say this either. And I've mentioned it I've heard people mention it before, but the anticipation of being rewarded is more powerful than the actual reward itself. It's a sloppy analogy, but it's one that I think people can understand. And Justin, don't fucking freak out when I say this, but it's very similar to the reason that people sit in front of a slot machine and pull it over and over again, right? Because the next one they're going to win, the next one they're going to win, the next one they're going to win. So there's been a lot of evidence that shows that dopamine levels in dogs and humans and whatever is at its highest when we're anticipating being rewarded. And Justin, don't get mad. I understand that there is a difference, but it helps explain it in just a very quick, like, to people listening. So variable reward schedules on a training perspective are extremely valuable because it gives a handler a chance to increase drive if needed. So what you'll end up finding is if you don't reward a dog as traditionally been rewarded on an odor multiple times, drive actually increases, right? So you're working at 5 detection problems in a row. So say you've got 8 areas and 5 fines, and you want to run the dog without being rewarded. You want to reward on 2 and 4 or whatever, right? In between those reward schedules, in between those reward events, the dog's drive will actually increase, and you'll see it routinely. We've in a tracking episode, we talked about this. Eric, I think you mentioned it, where you do a track of one leg, you get a fake radio call that the suspect was spotted a couple of blocks away. You put the dog up hot, you get him out, and he's like, "Oh, what is the deal?" He's not rewarded anything. We're just pulling him off a track. Get in the car, bro. Let's go. And then you get him out, and he's on fucking fire when he gets back out. Same odor, same suspect, same person, and the dog is on like murder mode. So the anticipation of being rewarded is often more valuable than the actual reward itself. And you can mitigate a lot of stupid shit that I see dogs do. Like they start, you can't see me. If you were watching YouTube, you can see me. The dogs look over their shoulder because they know where the reward comes from. You can mitigate a lot of those behaviors with that. You can also mitigate a lot of behaviors in terms of like dogs that kind of flat during detection and do the same shit over and over and over again with that as well. From a case law side, there's a case that everybody should be familiar with called U.S. versus Bentley. While the stop was great, there was no Rodriguez violation. You'd go read it. It's crazy. During the trial, the handler, and he calls it a gifty, right? Which Eric loves. It's Eric's favorite term for
literally the worst. That and show me are the two dumbest fucking words in canine.
So
absolutely stupid.
This handler, says every time, I hate the terms ever, every, never, and always, and whatever, right? So like these absolute truths. So this handler is like, every time a dog gets out of the car and he finds dope, he gets rewarded. And inevitably the questions then kind of come down to like, oh, every time, like, how do you know if he's right or not? Which is a whole other discussion about the difference between presence of and odor of narcotic substance, right? And I talked about that at the top of this segment, that's not why we're not rewarding him. But during this, it became apparent that this handler had no idea about variable rewards. So the variable reward schedule does give the opportunity to the handler to determine when the event happens and when it doesn't. And it gives the handler the ability to more than just release the dog from his TFR and reward that specific event, but it gives us the ability to start chaining things together from like an operational perspective. But from a case law perspective, it becomes very telling for, like, if you have to go to a suppression hearing and you just have to start explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it during actual fines, if we're rewarding on the side of the road, aside from the safety issues, like everyone, even my mom, like knows that when we reward the dog, it's a termination event. It just is, right? Suspects know it. Like your wife or your girlfriend knows. Like everyone who doesn't even do what you do or doesn't do what we do, they know that rewarding the dog is a termination event. That's the end of it. What they're going to do is they're going to have someone watch your body cam and read your report, and they're going to work backwards from that event. And then it becomes a bracketing issue. It's like all of the shit that needs to be worried about happens between here and here. When we don't reward, because the dogs are used to having variable reward schedules that has been documented in training, then that's no big deal, right? But what it does do is it gives you, as the handler, the ability to articulate all the things that you're seeing ahead of time and to articulate the final, if you get one, articulate all these events And because the first thing you could ask if you don't, and I've got some depositions from this where he's like, why didn't you reward the dog? And the handler's like, I don't have to. Like, it's not a thing. He's like, well, isn't that industry standard? Like, no, it's not industry standard. Wasn't a training standard? No, it's not a training standard. So then it becomes this entire conversation about what you're able to talk about succinctly and say, I've documented this in training. I've documented that we have a variable reward schedule. This is why we do it from a training perspective. This is why I do it from a case law perspective. And it's not because I don't trust him. It's because it's a safety issue, and it's because I want to be able, as the human being and the subject matter expert on the dog, because we're a certified team, to be able to articulate what I'm seeing and articulate my changes of behavior, the dog's changes of behavior, and the trained final response in the presence of target odor. All of that totality then gives you the entire event to be able to explain everything you're seeing. My guys, a lot of times what they'll do is they won't reward on the actual find. They'll take the dog behind the car and whatever, put him up, give him his ball, do something, right? And then they'll, search the car, find what they're going to find, put it back, and then run it as a training exercise, right? And then the dog alerts, they pay him, whatever, no big deal. At that point, it's a training exercise. They're waiting for the wrecker or whatever to come tow the car. So it's not because you don't trust him. It's because you don't know the difference between, you don't know what a variable reward schedule is, and you don't understand the training value, you don't understand the case law value, and you don't understand some pretty fundamental cases that have a wide-ranging impact on what you're doing and what you're saying as a handler, both in training, or what you're saying in writing, I guess, both in training and in deployments. And that's what it comes down to. A lot of times we're not taught this. Like, I talk about it a lot in our school and I train my guys on it, but from the amount of questions we get, and like, I'll do an HRD seminar and I'll have dudes ask me about detection. So we don't do any odor work at those, like none. So, yeah.
So real quick, Cameron had a little reel from an interview or something he posted the other day. And he said one of the big mistakes people are doing is not doing enough blanks.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you right away that back in the day, man, we didn't really do blanks. We put out, say, 4 hides, 4 rooms. Talk about how attorneys during suppression hearings and different things are using the lack of blanks against.
Well, in that case, that U.S. versus Bentley case, kind of the undercurrent of that, if you go, I actually tracked down some of the pre-trial shit from that, and they talked about that, like, how often were you doing blanks? What does that mean to you? Does the dog understand it? There's all these other predicate questions that were happening during the interrogatories, and this, what I'm about to say, applies directly to anything that the dog is related to. It can be detection work, it can be building searches, it can be tracks, it can be anything. And what we mean by a blank in detection work is we're asking the dog to search an area or a vehicle where there is no presence of no target odor. It's that simple, right? We're doing a building search where there is no presence of a suspect. We're doing a track where we end a track where there is no suspect. So those are also super valuable in terms of training, for a number of reasons. In terms of documentation, one, because you say you're doing it, right? Because not every single car you stop, or not every single car you are asked to sniff, is going to have odor in it. It's just not. Like, that is not the case, right? We got rid of that, thankfully, with Florida versus Harris. We don't have to do the whole hit and miss shit anymore. We don't have to keep that percentage anymore. Thank God. Mm-hmm. But the blanks are exceedingly important in terms of value for the dogs, and value for the handler, right? So if you're doing blanks blind, right? And if, for example, in our state certification, we have blinds that are built in. Like, we have to call blind. My handlers have to call blinds. Like, they're like, you've got 3 odors, you got 5 areas. You're like, okay. We don't know which odor is where, obviously, but I mean, after the fact, they tell us, but handlers are like, this is a blank area. And the only way that you're going to get and how we do that is, like, the dog is not giving us, and he's showing his hunting behavior, right? Like, he's hunting, he's looking for odor, but he's not finding anything, right? Which is okay. I mean, especially for narcotics dogs, just because you don't, like, if the dog doesn't find anything, there's nothing there usually. So it's fine. It doesn't always have to be something in the vehicle, but you need to be able to say, yes, I know I've run and I've documented running blind blanks in training, and all of our guys in my reports, or in the reports I write, my last 3 deployments, these are the outcomes of my last 3 deployments. And sometimes my last 3 deployments were nothing. right? I got no change of behavior, so we wrote him a ticket and cut him loose. No harm, no foul. So it does happen. In that case, the U.S. versus Bentley, that handler did not do that. He said every time the dog got out of the car, he found something, and every time he got out of the car and find something, he got his toy. So did he learn so? Which is
every time. So really, sir, every time.
It's what it like. If you read the transcript from the deposition, it's like he's like, yeah, every time. I'm like, God damn, dude.
Yeah, and they can use that against you, even though you found dope in that guy's car.
Yep.
Yes, every time, including yours. So I'm batting 1,000. Right.
And so don't be afraid in blanks to not necessarily detection, but in like tracking and in building searches. Do not be afraid to reward the dog with something else for good hunting behavior, right? Like he doesn't need a bite, but like if we're tracking along with a young dog and he's mocking, like he's got a super strong cross headwind, it's really hard. There's no physical barrier on the side of him. So he's having to keep his head, or we've got a side cross tailwind. Sorry. It's a hard track, cross tailwind, hard surface. Dog is hoovering. I'll throw a tug or a ball over his head and like he'll like reward the tracking behavior right then, right? He understands that he's being rewarded because his foundation is being rewarded, at 12-inch intervals is where he starts at for tracking. So they understand being rewarded for that behavior. You're able to reward for that behavior. You're able to reward for good behavior. Like you got a dog that's, you got a hallway that's got 40 doors in it and you got to sniff every one and you want to break it up into 5. So he sniffs these 5, reward. He sniffs those 5, reward. He sniffs those 5, reward. He sniffs these 5. All of a sudden decoys there. Great. But at their core, right, we're rewarding the hunting behavior, not necessarily the actual like end result. And that ends up with a whole capping drive scenario where we start. That's a whole other conversation. But that's where the blanks can pay dividends for apprehension handlers on the non-detection side stuff. So, but yeah, blanks are super important. Blanks are just as important as hot finds. And in blanks, the other definition of a blank that I've seen, because they say, well, the question was, what is a blank? The handler says it's a search or it's a search or an area that has non-productive results. What is a non-productive result? We don't get a final and we don't get any alert. And so the next following question is, does that mean that the area is devoid of any odor? And you're like, well, of course not. So then it becomes a blank can also be an area that has tangential odor, such as tobacco. Or if you're or this is when we start talking about proofing, right? A blank is also a time when I can specifically set out tangential or anomalous odor that there's no target odor present, that the dog may show interest in, but doesn't give you a final, or just completely blows it every time. And then after the fact, like how our blanks run and training is, I say, you've got X number of finds, you've got to search these areas. And then after the fact, I'm like, document that this and this and this and this and this and this was in the area, and that the dog was exposed to it and showed no interest. And I don't tell them ahead of time. I tell them after the fact, right? So because then we start building this Rolodex of things that the dogs will blow off: tobacco, rolling paper, Swisher sweets. What else do I have? I
tennis balls.
Tennis balls, dog food. Like if you ever watch videos of me doing popper work at the thing, and speaking of like Cameron, like that's one of his things, right? Like, oh, don't use ball poppers because you're gonna. And that was the whole conversation about the Kong thing too. Like, don't use ball poppers because your dog's gonna find plastic and lithium. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, I get it. We don't train dogs in fucking labs. However, I'm not the cleanest like detection trainer in the world. Like if you look at my detection room, like our detection, my ball poppers, each one has a ball popper in it. So that's a common smell. One will have target odor in it. Another one will have dog food. Another one has like rubber gloves and a giant bag of like tobacco, like, I don't know, like a half a pound of tobacco. And then another one will have like,
that's worth $1 million right now.
Yeah, there's
cigarettes are $10. I just saw at the store the other day. I'm like, $10 a pack.
God dang, you have to want to smoke. Fuck. $10 at a time, kill yourself. So from the beginning, like all of our dogs are taught to ignore anomalous odor. So if you see videos of me working in that our detection area, I've got all those lockers. All those lockers have something in them. Not all of them, but they all have a bunch of shit in them they'll have bite equipment in one. We'll have dog food in another one. I've got tobacco in one. I've got Kongs in another one, tennis balls in another one. I've got rubber hose in another one. I've got PVC and copper pipe in another one because that's everybody's fucking favorite word all of a sudden. What else is in there? I've got all kinds of crazy shit in there. And we'll just open the lockers and handlers are like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, don't worry about it. We'll tell you later. And
why is there a child in here?
Yeah.
Listen,
why is there a fucking
business.
kid in here? So it's something that you need to kind of have going on in the back of your mind. While it's important that we document that the dogs do alert to the things that we're certified to find, right? Like all the normal hood rat shit. It's also important to say that, yeah, he's been exposed to this and in training on this date and whatever else, and he showed no interest and went straight to target odor. Like, no big deal.
Yeah.
And I count those as blinds also for my narcotic. And for my explosive guys too, like I'll do like rubber gloves and solder. What else? There's a specific type of glue, electrical tape, all kinds of crazy shit. Like there's another guy down in Louisiana that tells people that you can't reward dogs with Kongs and you have to use a rolled up towel because if you reward them with Kongs, they'll learn on tires. And he's serious. Like he's dead serious when he says it. He looks you straight in the eye and says that without smiling, which is, I mean, and people are like, oh, that makes sense. I'm looking around. I'm like, are you shitting me? How does the fuck does that make sense?
All right. I hope you guys liked this episode. A little bit of training information. I get to go to jiu-jitsu now, so
yeah,
go get strangled.
Get your laundry folded with you in it.
So typically every time that we do these, somebody will reach out. For me, if you want to reach out to me, Van S K9 on Instagram or Eric at Van S K9 is my email. And I get a lot of people can't learn just by watching me make hand gestures online. Also, the big thing with Ted on these is the people will ask for the case law stuff. So give them your email or a way to get hold of you.
Ted at torchlightk9, letter K number 9.com. It's just U.S. versus Bentley, U.S. versus Jordan. What was the other one I mentioned? I think we mentioned Watkins earlier about the whole stop talking to your dog thing.
And of course, Florida versus Harris.
And sure you know that. Florida versus Harris. If you're listening to this and you want that PDF of those interrogatories, it's 9 or 10 pages. It handles dual purpose shit too. So if you're a dual purpose handler, it handles like all of that. So it's not like 9 pages of just detection work, but it's got some really good predicate questions for canine handlers to certify you as an expert witness. And I have watched some depositions where I'm pretty sure they were reading from the same document because they literally were like down here. And there's some shit in there like, oh, what's your dog's name? What does it mean? And that's more on the use of force side. So if you have a dog named Devil, not that there's anything wrong with that dog. He's a nice dog. Devil is a nice dog, or something ridiculous, right? Like
Demon or something.
Demon. You're like, or Eric had a dog named Loco. You're like, oh, what does that mean? You're like, I don't know. The easiest answer is like, I don't know. That's what they named him in Europe. It's on his passport. So we kept it. Unless it's something ridiculous, then you can rename him. But like, that's
his
why.
His name is Taint. What does that mean? Well, let me show you.
Yeah. So you want me to show you? So there's things in there that like they build into something which they're trying to describe of like excessive use of force or something else. So it's a good kind of like outline. You should be able to answer all of these either written or verbal and pretty easily. I would imagine you should be able to anyway. But yeah, shoot me an email, Ted at torchlightk9, letter K9.com. I'll send it over to you.
Yep. Check us out on all our socials. We've sent them a million times on here.
Yeah, everybody knows where we're at.
Get on Amazon, look up my name, my book's on there. That's got all my obedience stuff in there, e-collar, things like that. Check it out. And then workingdogradio.com for all our t-shirts. No Beer for Oil is not on there.
No, this is an old shirt.
That's an old shirt. So
yep.
Anyways, thanks guys. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks guys.